It's Monday, April 9th, and I'm your host, Paula Hersey. On today's show, State Representative Tim Whalen talks with Sarah Beal about his ongoing initiatives on Beacon Hill. Arts and Culture Coordinator Melissa Charton explores a hidden gem, the Cultural Center of Cape Cod. Let's start with some news you can use. At the April 5th Town Council meeting, the $4.6 million Barnstable High School field upgrade was approved. Superintendent Meg Mayo Brown thanked the student athletes for their show of support and their staying power for the long meeting. Stay tuned for updates here on Channel 18. It's construction season here in Barnstable, and our downtown sidewalks are getting some much-needed repairs. The Department of Public Works are performing sidewalk repairs on Main Street, Pearl Street, South Street, and Ocean Street in Hyannis. The work includes repair of failed curb and sidewalk sections, correction of tripping hazards in existing sidewalk areas, complying with the Americans with Disabilities Act standards, and improving aesthetics. Construction operations will start promptly at 7 a.m. and run until 5 p.m. Work is expected to be completed by May 17, 2018. As always, please slow down and use extreme caution when traveling through all construction areas and follow posted safety signs. Who's the best Barnstable dog? Maybe it's your family canine. Now is the time to send in your photos of your family dog in order to enter Barnstable's Best Dog Contest for 2018. So send in your dog's photo, put your name and address on the back, along with a check for the dog license. The contest ends on May 1st. The winner of Barnstable's Best Dog will receive the #1 tag, and his or her photo will be on the Barnstable website for the coming year. The clerk's office will accept photos until noon on the 1st of May. The winner will be announced on May 4th. So remember to come in and vote during that time for your favorite dog. All dog owners have until July 1st, 2018 to get their 2018 license. Order early so you won't forget. And now an update from our Barnstable High School intern, Mackenzie Connor.
Hello, I'm Mackenzie Connor, intern for Channel 18. There's a lot happening at Barnstable High School this week. The annual BHS Fashion Show will be on April 12th at 6 p.m. in the Performing Arts Center. Tickets are $5 for students and children and $10 for adults. These tickets can be purchased in advance or at the door. This event showcases original handmade designs from our fashion design students. For seniors, Scholarship Bulletin number 15 is available in school counseling and house offices. Also for seniors in the National Honor Society, community service hours are due at the end of the month. Log your hours on X2 by May 1st. Any student interested in American Heart Association, CPR, and/or first aid certification can go to the nurse's office to sign up for a few empty spots in upcoming classes by Friday, April 13th. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. I'm Mackenzie Connor.
The High Artist Shanties are on the move, and it is a sure sign of spring. I caught up with Arts and Culture Coordinator Melissa Charton down at the Hyannis Harbor as the shanties were being placed back in Bismore Park. Wow, what an exciting day.
I am so excited, Paula. I know I'm dressed for winter, but this means spring and summer are on their way.
So the shanties got picked up out of the parking lot this morning onto flatbed trucks and coming right down here into the harbor. Tell us what happens to get these shanties ready.
Of course, well, this is Bismore Park. They come in, you can see them setting up at this time. Once they take off all the boards and make sure everything's level, we open them up, clean them out, fresh paint if they need it, get new signs and get them ready for the artists to move in. Opening day is May 4th.
May 4th, that's not very far. That's literally just about a month away, right?
Exactly. And so the artists like to come pre-season to do, so we have new artists that participate every year as well as returning artists in the program. So they like to come and measure and take pictures, and that's another reason why we have them open so that they can really feel comfortable. Early in the season, it's weekends. So then in between each weekend, if there's some tweaks or anything we need to do, but pretty much they're good to go for the season once we have everything done.
So I know you're probably full already for your jury artists, but
people still getting applications in?
Yes, they are, Paula, and thank you for that. We encourage artists to apply year-round, really, for placement. We have a waiting list. The process is they'll apply. If they get juried in, if there's a space that happens to be open, we put them in. If not, they're on the waiting list, because you never know what can happen, what circumstances. We do have folks that have to give up their week begrudgingly, but then that opens up an opportunity for another artist. So they definitely can go to artsbarnstable.com, get the application right from the website. They'll see a whole shanty tab, and then if they have any questions, of course, they could call me as well.
Well, that's fantastic. So a little bit of background on this. So what year is this for the shanties?
This, believe it or not, is the 14th season. I can't believe it. It seems like yesterday, and I'm really excited this year too. The program's expanded. So we have the 7 shanties here that do get moved seasonally, but we also have new ones on the Harbor Overlook, which is the area along the walkway to the sea, across from Azleton Park, and those are permanent. So there's 3 more there, so we actually can accommodate 10 artists a week, which is really exciting this year as well.
That's fantastic. So, signs of spring, the
Signs of
shanty's
spring.
on the move.
There are several bills that State Representative Tim Whalen is working on at the State House. Here is Sarah Beal with an update.
Tim, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate that you take time out of your schedule to join us once a month to chat about what's been going on up on Beacon Hill.
Sarah, I really appreciate the opportunity. I want to get as much information out there to the people here on Cape Cod about everything that's going on up there, because we're your elected officials in government. We should be as open and honest and informative as possible so people know what's going on with their government. So thank you for the opportunity. You're doing me a great favor.
My pleasure. So we're going to talk about the Criminal Justice Reform Bill. A report was recently released from the conference committee about this. What can you tell us about this report so far?
Sure, Sarah. So back several months ago, before it was in November of last year and the October previous, the Senate and the House each filed and passed their own versions of a comprehensive, sweeping criminal justice reform bill. And this bill, the one that came out of each body, it's kind of all-encompassing. It was covering areas from calculating good time for prisoners to dealing with bail issues for people awaiting trial, to controlled substances laws and the like. And it was kind of sweeping and covered a lot of points. So what happened was the House and the Senate filed, each body passed 2 different versions of the bill. So it goes to what they call a conference committee. And there were 3 members appointed from the House, 3 from the Senate. And they sit down in a room and they go over and they try and come to a consensus and come up with one finished piece that's a compromise piece between the two past bodies from either side. Mm-hmm. So they just released a report this past week, and there were 2 components in there. I just started reading it. I just got into it. We have at least a week and a half to read through it. It's 121 pages long, so that'll make for interesting nighttime reading for me. Hopefully, I'll be able to absorb as much as possible in that time. We're working on it full time. Mm-hmm. But the 2 components that I zeroed right in on relate to 2 issues that were very near and dear to me that we got included in the House version, and it did survive and came out in the conference committee report. The first one deals with fentanyl trafficking. So 3 years ago, myself and my friend and colleague Paul Tucker, Democrat from Salem, we filed a piece of legislation to add fentanyl to the trafficking statutes, because we could kind of see the writing on the wall that fentanyl was replacing heroin on the streets, and we saw the lethality of it, and the numbers were proving that it's very, very lethal. Unfortunately, those observations proved to be true. So What happened was our bill was set aside in favor of a bill that the Attorney General filed, and the language in this bill that the Attorney General filed, the language was kind of broken as it computes the weight, the trigger weight for fentanyl for purposes of determining trafficking. What it did was it said 10 grams or more of fentanyl in a product. The only problem is fentanyl is cut at a 50-to-1 ratio, so you would be looking at somewhere north of 500 grams or half a kilo before you could even consider getting into trafficking weight of fentanyl. This obviously proved to be a huge problem. The other problem is that the crime lab doesn't possess the technology to be able to determine how much of a half a kilo load, what weight of that is actually fentanyl. So about a year and a half ago, Rep. Tucker and I filed legislation to fix this and to basically do what we do for every other drug in every other state, which is take the gross weight of the product and the cutting agents, and that will determine the weight for the trigger weight of 10 grams. So it fixes a gaping loophole, and it will allow our district attorneys and our police officers to hold those who traffic in fentanyl accountable for their actions, which unfortunately hasn't been the case up until this point. And the other thing that we got included again, and this was between myself and Rep. Tucker joint filing, was, and we had, I believe it was the entire Cape and Islands delegation co-sponsored, was to make carfentanil, also known as elephant tranquilizer, a Class A controlled substance. So this final conference committee report, and again, this carfentanil is the most dangerous, lethal product on the streets. The fatal dosage amount on it is 20 micrograms, if you can even fathom how small that is. And it's shown up on our streets, started showing up about a year ago. So this was included as well. Carfentanil currently is not considered an illegal product. You can sell it on the street in front of a police department. There is absolutely nothing that can be done about it as it stands right now. So we managed to get this through the legislative process. It was included. It will be controlled as a Class A controlled substance. And the trafficking quantity for carfentanil, because of its great lethality, is any amount. So if you are arrested with any amount of carfentanil, you will be subject to much stiffer penalties. And the message that we're trying to get across here to the dealers, that we're trying to get across to the traffickers, is that fentanyl and carfentanil are not welcome in Massachusetts. And if you want to peddle in these dangerous drugs, then you are going to be punished very severely. We don't want this poison on our streets, and we want to protect our citizens, and we want to protect those vulnerable souls who are trapped in the web of addiction from these dangerous products. So I'm very proud that we got this included. If I do nothing else in my time in the legislature, getting these two things done in there, it's going to always bring me great pride in knowing that these pieces of legislation, getting them included, means we're going to save some lives. And that's what we're all about. That's what we should be doing. We should be looking for answers to complex problems up on Beacon Hill, and we should be protecting our citizens. That's it. So at least in this case, I can very strongly feel that, you know, the work in this area, we got it done. Now we move on to the next thing that we can do to try and protect our citizens and to try and end this opioid addiction crisis.
It is quite an issue here and across the United States, and fentanyl being such a huge part of it now. What are the next steps for the criminal justice reform bill now that it's gone through the conference committee and it's kind of been solidified into one, you know, with both the House and the Senate?
Well, that's a great question, Sarah, and thank you for that. And before I answer, I just want to apologize. I have a little bit of a springtime cold going on here, so if I'm a little difficult to understand, I apologize. I've had a little bit of laryngitis as of late.
Yeah.
But in answer to your question, what happens now is the conference committee report will be scheduled for, and it's just a straight up or down vote in the House. And then, it'll be in the Senate first because the bill derived from the Senate. It'll be set up for a straight up or down vote from the Senate, then we'll do an up or down vote in the House. I assume that it will pass in both bodies, and then it'll be laid before the governor to be signed. And the governor's been calling, in particular as it deals with the fentanyl and carfentanil issue, the governor's been calling for several months to get this bill in front of him because he wants to sign it. He's listening to the law enforcement officers. He's listening to our district attorneys. He's listening to the people that work in addiction recovery and treatment. He understands the need to get these two issues addressed as soon as possible, and that lives are hanging in the balance. So I would anticipate that once we vote to pass the bill in the House, they'll walk that bill down the hall to the governor's office, and it will be signed very shortly thereafter.
That's great. We'll keep our fingers crossed that all goes forward smoothly, and look forward to getting an update from you about this next month. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us today, and I hope that you feel better.
Hopefully the weather will be a little bit better, and my laryngitis will be a little bit more cooperative. But
yes.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and I wish you and all of your audience a great day.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. My guest today is Tim Whalen. He's the state rep for the 1st Barnstable District.
The Cultural Center of Cape Cod is a hub of artist activity. Arts and Culture Coordinator Melissa Chartrand sits down with Director of Education Amy Neal to discover all the programs, classes, and events the center has to offer.
I'm Melissa Chartrand. I'm here with Amy Neal, Director of Education from the Cultural Center of Cape Cod, located in Yarmouth, Massachusetts. Thrilled to have you here today, Amy.
Thank you.
We could spend the entire time of this segment just having you list off what goes on at the Cultural Center without talking about anything else. It is such a happening place.
It is. We have 1,500 events a year happening, which on average to the day is about 4 different kinds of everything happening all at once. So we're very busy.
Yes, I would say so. And let's have an overview of the center. The history is quite interesting, and where it is today.
Yeah, it all started with the Bass River Savings Bank. It was the beautiful building was built in 1930, and it was a working, functioning bank for over 50 years. And in the early 80s, they got bought out, like lots of banks do, and this beautiful, solid building just sat vacant in this neighborhood. And this neighborhood got together. They had this vision of what they wanted it to be, so they formed a nonprofit called the Cultural Center of Cape Cod, and there was a wealthy neighbor in the neighborhood
That's always helpful.
Yes, who purchased the bank and donated it to this newly formed nonprofit. So right off the bat, it was like a miracle the way it started, and the building was just in shambles because it was about 20 years with just vacant. So there were raccoons living in the building, there was a hole in the roof. People still come in and tell me that they walked in the building and they couldn't even breathe because the air quality was so terrible. And we had a quote for $2.3 million to restore the building, and they just started making flyers and going door to door, asking for donations to restore this project.
So really the community is very behind the center.
It's
and
absolutely
there's
the
good
community.
reason why,
Yes,
because as you
yes.
say, so much happens
Yes.
there. And this is where, you know, everything, music, theater, arts.
Exactly, yeah. It's like the heartbeat of the neighborhood.
Sure.
And beyond, you know, to the rest of the Cape. So we ended up opening our doors in 2007. We finished the project at $750,000, which was 1/3 of the original estimate of $2.3 million. And we've been
Going ever
since. And just about immediately, our programming just took off, and we just, you know, with art exhibits and concerts and classes and everything that happens in between. We found a need that we wanted more space.
Sure.
So we had another building that was next to the bank, to the new cultural center, and that was known as the Owl Club. And the Owl Club was a men's club in town where these guys would do lots of good things for the community, raising money. And it was just like the bank. It was abandoned and a shack.
It was like a sign, here
it
you
was
go,
just
it's
waiting.
right on the
Yes.
campus.
Yes. So a capital campaign was started, and we did it. We raised the money. It was 1/3 through the state, 1/3 through the town of Yarmouth, and 1/3 private donations. And the education wing opened its doors in 2016, in January.
So, and a lot goes on there, everything
Yes.
from artists in residence that have studios, not
Yes.
living, but workspace. You
Right.
have big open community rooms.
Yeah, so we now have additional space for events and classes. We have a full commercial kitchen. We have a pottery studio, a recording studio, a photography and digital art studio, and we have a mentor studio because we have a program where we work with at-risk youth on the Cape, and we want to have a space for them to come in and work. And then we have our 5 artist residence studios where they just come in and they work out of their space and they also teach. So,
wow. So again, it goes on and on and on.
It does.
Now, your role as Director of Education, your
Yes.
background, what led you and attracted you to this position?
Yeah, I went to art school. I started as a photographer. I studied at the museum school where they really encourage you to try different mediums. I tried stained glass, I did painting and drawing and a little bit of film, and I'm still pretty much the same way. I'm all over the place when it comes to art. I love working with my hands, and just I'm a serial class taker myself, so it's kind of perfect. If I want to take a calligraphy class, then I'll find a calligraphy teacher and make that happen.
That's
so
wonderful.
it's a little bit of that, but yeah, I've just been working as an artist for all these years, working in nonprofit on Cape Cod since 2010, and I met Bob and Lauren at a fundraiser back in 2015.
Right,
and,
and there you go, and they're the director and associate director
Yes.
of the Cultural
Yes,
Center.
yes.
And now with, as you say, education in this whole new wing and the different types of program, talk a little bit about the culinary or the pottery and how that works, if I could come and want to take a class or be involved.
Yeah, the culinary classes are a lot of fun because it's just it's a one-off class. It's just a one night, it's not a long-term commitment, and we hear people in there cracking up laughing all the time, eating amazing food. Our chef is world-class. He's super knowledgeable and teaches everybody about whatever the cuisine is, the recipes, where they come from, their origins. He pairs wine. He's great.
That's my kind of class.
Yes, and then I know. And we also do private classes for that. So if you have a group of friends and you want to come in and just have your own cooking class, we do a ton of those too. So people love that. A lot of the other classes are, 6 weeks long, 3 weeks long. They're a little bit more of a commitment. We have weekend workshops as well. Our pottery studio is a 6-week-long class. We have wheel throwing, we have slab building, we have hand building, and we're also going to be adding like a one-off class with pottery where you can come in just one night and paint and drink wine and have fun and,
Lots of options, I would say. Not only those classes, I'm also sensing that if someone had an idea for a class, they certainly could reach out to you to say, hey, we'd love to.
I get that all the time.
Although you have so much to offer, I really can't imagine. And again, in addition to the education wing, as you said, you have art exhibits. It being a bank, you have a room called the Vault. I mean, the ceilings, the facility itself is beautiful. I know that people can rent, as you say, if you want to rent out the space for a party or what have you. Where can our viewers get information on this happening place, which is open year-round, I might add?
It is, yes. 7 days a week, 365 days a year, Our website is cultural-center.org, and that's the #1 place to get everything that's most current, because we have a newsletter that comes out every month, but we have so much happening all the time. We're literally adding programming, events every single day.
Right.
So,
yeah, so much. Again, everything from you can go for a concert or a class or just to take a look around. You have a wonderful gift shop.
We do.
As well. And before we go, I do want to mention that you have a cafe.
We have a cafe in the summertime, yes. So from Thursdays to Saturdays in the mornings from about 9 to noon, you can come and get coffee and pastries. We have a beautiful patio. People jump onto our Wi-Fi and just hang out, and it's another reason to come and visit and just be part of everything happening there.
Absolutely. Well, Amy, thank you so much for sharing
Thank you.
all about the Cultural Center. It is a wonderful place.
Thank you.
For Amy Neal, Director of Education at the Cultural Center of Cape Cod, I'm Melissa Chartrand, wishing you an artful day.
Here's a look at the community calendar. On April 9th, Deer Tick Talk with Larry Dapsis, Katuitt Public Library at 6 p.m. Lyme disease is the most prevalent infectious disease in Massachusetts and is now considered to be a public health crisis. In addition to Lyme, deer ticks can carry pathogens which can cause babesiosis, anoplosis, relapsing fever, and Powassan virus, all of which can be very serious. This program will review the basic life cycle and ecology of deer ticks, incident rates and distribution of tick-borne illnesses, in addition to a database under development on infectious rates of ticks. A 3-point protection plan will be presented. Protect yourself, protect your yard, and protect your pet. Tick-borne diseases are preventable. This program is free, but please register at cotuitlibrary.org/events or contact the library. Looking for a new pocketbook? The Centerville Library is currently accepting donations of rarely used or gently used pocketbooks and jewelry for our upcoming fundraisers. Please bring donations to the front desk at the library. And let's take a look at the calendar for this week for boards, commissions, and committees. We hope you'll join us again tomorrow for an update with Bud Braille, Airport Manager and DPW Director Dan Santos, and a special interview with Larry Cole, Honorary Captain for the Military Relay for the Boston Marathon. I'm Paula Hersey, and thank you for watching Barnstable Today.